People who quit their jobs on the first day. What was your I'm out to here moment? Summer job working for a landscape architect. Got to the job site and he asked me to dig a hole in some rocky dirt. I asked for a shovel. He didn't have one. I asked for a hand spade. He didn't have one. He told me to just dig the hole with my bare hands, and then he drove off to another site leaving me completely alone. I dug for a little bit and then said fuck this and left. Had the job specified that I needed to supply my own tools I could, but it didn't, and I wasn't going to work for somebody that expected folks to dig through hard, rocky soil with their hands. On the first day of working at Amazon warehouse, the managers broke down to everyone how a 15-minute break works there. Walking to the break room is 2.5 minutes. 10 minutes of actual break, and then 2.5 minutes to go back to your stations. It took me 2.5 minutes to walk to my car and I took a forever break. Also you have 3 minutes to use the bathroom, but the nearest bathroom is a 5-minute walk away. My first internship was at a Brazilian teen detention center. It's akin to a prison, but Brazilian law has some distinctions between crimes committed while as an adult or as a teenager. Teens go through socio-educational measures. I was walking through a courtyard with my supervisor when some doctors came running flailing their arms and screaming while officers came running from the opposite direction. I get pulled by my supervisor who just tells me to run back to our office. These teens as young as 12 had escaped their block. A few minutes later an officer comes knocking on the doors of the offices and yelling for everyone to run outside because a fire had broken out. Some of the teens had set mattresses on fire in their cells. I didn't really know out. My teacher did. She hadn't even been there that day, so I was forced by the university to choose another place to intern at. Oh well. Answered an ad in the paper. This was the mid-90s. What seemed to be an office job making sales calls when I was in college. Did a phone interview and was called back for an in-person interview. When I go to the interview I'm led into a room with about 50 other people and a small stage at the front of the room. We're all somewhat confused as to what is going on. Finally a guy gets on the stage and informs us that we've been selected for the opportunity to sell Cutco. Me and 2/3 of the rest stood up and walked out. A long time ago, not long after getting my papers as a chef, I had an interview at a hotel for a position in the kitchen. The executive chef and I chatted in his office for about 20 minutes. At the time I remember him coming off as very arrogant, which is quite common in this field. I didn't think much of it at the time as the pay was decent and the shift was what I wanted. As I was leaving his office I turned to leave through the dining room, the way I had come in, which was closed at the time. It was another hour or so before service started, and he says to me, no, not that way. Go through the kitchen. You're not good enough to go through the dining room. I was so surprised by what he said. I just did what he asked without a word. Later on, after I had got home, I phoned him up and said that after having a close look I decided that his menu wasn't good enough and that I wouldn't be accepting his offer. I noped out of an interview one time, thanked them at the end and said it wasn't for me. Those interviewing management level folks started arguing with each other in front of me during the interview. I figured, if this is the vibe at the management level, then I sure as hell don't want to be your employee. Restaurant. Swept under my station when we were closing. Giant brown pile came out with broom from under low boy fridge. Pile began to scatter. It was hundreds of roaches. Never returned. Did you call the health department? That is just too gross for words. I answered an ad for a babysitting job. I was already working on a casual basis, but it was sporadic, so I thought some after hours babysitting would be welcome extra cash. The couple were both in the military and proceeded to tell me that I would be staying in the spare room and looking after their 6-month-old child around the clock as well as doing the housework. I would have 1 day off every 2 weeks. They said it is cash in hand, so I could sign on to the dole unemployment benefit to make up the rest of the money. I left on the spot. They wanted a live-in housemaid and nanny, not a babysitter, and they were not able to pay for one. Why they thought it was up to me to illegally collect the dole to subsidize them, I don't know. I've heard of situations similar to this before. Often they've had someone work for them with that arrangement previously, so they think it's somehow normal or okay. You sometimes see people wanting full-time childcare and paying like $100 a week because their friend had been happy with that arrangement. It's a bit different when it's a total stranger who doesn't owe the family any favors. Wasn't exactly the first day, but I didn't show up after the second shift. It was a rather popular cafe chain in my country. I was hired to work in the kitchen as a cook along with another senior cook. Let's put aside the fact that I had zero cooking knowledge whatsoever. The senior cook was leaving the kitchen every 5 minutes to smoke. So there I am, alone in the kitchen. Orders are printing fast, and I'm standing there not sure what to do first. And the waitress comes over yelling at me to cook as I don't have any business cooking. Definitely not on my own. Later on, the senior cook told me they had at least 2 rats running around the kitchen. Showed me they pooped on a plate. I never came back, and I'm glad the place got shut down. I was hired to be a waitress, which has a lower hourly wage due to tips. The entire shift they had me wash dishes in the sink, but paid me waitress wages. A few months later, the restaurant was investigated for a number of fraud activity. It was a small independent insurance agency in 2006. My first day there, the owner, a true fossil, said email and fax were strictly forbidden as he only believed in communication in person, by phone, or through mail. Left for lunch and never went back. I couldn't imagine the inefficiency I'd have dealt with had I stayed. They ultimately closed their doors, so it was definitely the right decision. I interviewed for a professional marketing assistant and got the job straight away. I was under the impression that I would be an assistant to the man I was interviewed by. When I showed up for my first day, the same waiting room I was in the previous day was full of people. I quickly learned that we were all hired, and that I would be a door-to-door salesperson selling some pretty useless shit. I spent my entire day inside a Starbucks applying for other jobs and went home. Got paid, but never went back. A similar thing happened to me. I feel your pain. I applied for an event planner job, having previously worked as a wedding planner, and got an interview with a company based in the city. Went to the interview the next day and something was off, but I couldn't figure it out. They asked me to work a trial day the day after, so I said yes. Get to the morning briefing, and my trainer said we'd be working away from the office. So I'm thinking, what sort of event is it? What would I be doing? How exciting. I'd be standing on a street corner in the rain trying to get OAPs, so sign up to give to charities. What a scam. Edit to OAP stands for Old Age Pensioner. I thought it was a universal acronym for native English speakers, but I may have been wrong. At least with marketing assistant I can kinda see how they turned it into door-to-door salespeople. I can't see how event planner turned into a street corner sign-up sheet. I wasn't the person, but I was training a new guy at a movie theater. A customer asked for extra butter. She was nice and normal, not a mean or rude customer, the kind I would pay to handle all day long. He puts the popcorn tub down, says I'm going to the bathroom, takes off his apron and walks out the front door and never came back. It was a petrol station and the manager wanted me to work for free until I had learned their computer systems to what he deemed a satisfactory extent. I agreed to do it because I needed a job, and he brought me in at 7 AM on my first day. However, he was not present to go through the training with me, so I was just standing around kind of helping out on the forecourt, but not really knowing what I should be doing, not learning anything. After about an hour and a half without the manager showing up or anyone training me on anything, I decided that I wasn't going to continue to be taken advantage of and told the cashier to pass on the message to the manager that I had quit. When the microwave in the lunchroom was coin activated. This is like when I made my patrons pay money to use the bathrooms at my roller coaster park when the ticket prices weren't cutting it. Amazing move. If enjoyed this, like and subscribe. We release funny stories every single day. Cheers.